Good morning. I'm Jack Berryman, ACSM historian, and we're here this morning talking with Pamela Peeke as part of the ACSM's Distinguished Leaders in Sports Medicine and Exercise Science DVD series. So welcome, Pam.
Happy to be here.
So I just wanted to start with a little bit about your early life, where you grew up, high school days, and then where you decided to go to college, what you majored in, that type of thing.
I'm a Californian, a surfer girl.
Okay.
Summer home was in Santa Cruz, and I was born and raised in San Francisco. Where I went to college was fairly straightforward. I made one choice. Only wanted to go to Berkeley.
Oh.
And the good news is it was right across the Bay Bridge. And what I ended up doing was going to a high school that really prepped me for this. It was a geek high school. It's called Lowell. We were such a bunch of geek losers, we didn't even have a football team. But we were all pre-something, and going to Berkeley was an easy kickoff. I clearly was pre-med. Now, what's interesting was that in my senior year of high school, when the yearbook guy shows up and says, so what do we put under your name? Pre-something, pre-med, pre-law, because you're going to go off to do something great, right? And I said, I haven't got a clue. And he thought, oh boy, what am I going to do with her? Bottom line, he said, what do you like? I said, I like people, I like science, and I like math. And he says, doctor. And I said, yeah, let's go with that. That's how long that conversation was.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh my gosh. So off I went to Berkeley as a pre-med, and that lasted about 2 years because I knocked off all of my stuff I needed to do, my prerequisites. But I've always believed in more of a holistic approach, a bigger picture approach. And as much as I love to study humans, please, there had to be more. And son of a gun, I went to the Honors College, and they let me double major in pre-med, biology, cellular emphasis, as well as, get this, I was one of the first ones to study ecology. So it was conservation of natural resources.
Sure.
Berkeley now has the #1 department in the country. And so I had a chance to look at sick people, sick plants, a sick planet, and to really look at it in a much bigger approach. This is also while I was at Berkeley where I fell in love with cycling. I would go behind the Lawrence Rad Lab up to Inspiration Point and cycle for miles and miles and miles, and then just sort of overlook Sausalito and Mount Tamalpais and do a little meditation and kind of get back into it again. It all worked. Then when I was at Berkeley, I liked it so much I didn't want to go. So my excuse to stay there was to do a double master's in public policy and public health, which is what I did. And that was probably one of the smartest moves of my life because it gave me a chance to be able to now, again, take it up to another level. And my love of science and medicine and health now was applied to larger populations. I could now apply epidemiology, and I now also had a real appreciation of, again, that integrative approach, what I love to call mind, mouth, and muscle. Looking at the mind, looking at nutrition, looking at physical activity all together. Now, this is way before this was cool.
I was going to ask you, what were the years you were at Berkeley?
All right, so I finished up in 1976.
Okay.
And so this was when the Berkeley co-ops were up. We had nutrition going on. It was just absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
I was also one of the very first patrons at Chez Panisse, which is where the famous founder of Chez Panisse, Alice Waters, the chef who really brought farm to table and all the organic gardens there.
Yeah.
Actually, I could walk to Chez Panisse from where I lived on North Side in Berkeley. So I was living in an incredible time of
pretty exciting
really
time.
historical. When we were looking at nutrition and taking better care of ourselves. This is flying in the face of so much of traditional crisis-oriented medicine, et cetera. Then I applied to only one medical school on an early decision, and I applied to them primarily because I sought out a medical school that was going to give me a chance to advance much faster. It had sort of an advanced placement program, and that was Michigan State University. I happened to meet one of their deans who was on sabbatical at Berkeley, and that's how I found out about him.
Is that East Lansing?
That's in East Lansing, Michigan.
Okay.
And I got in, and so that was very nice. And I immediately was joined by an amazing group of what we call the Track 2 students, who were very much like myself, had other advanced degrees, who had come from amazing backgrounds, and we ended up moving fairly quickly through the curriculum.
You had your MPH
I already
going
had
in.
my MPH and
Okay.
going right in. I did it a bit differently because many physicians actually go back to get their MPH.
Yes, that's why
I was
asked,
one
yeah.
of the few non-physicians allowed in the graduate program. And so that worked out very nicely. And from there, once again, seeking a program that was very exciting, integrative, and an amazing place, I went to George Washington University, where I studied internal medicine, and that was my internship and residency
Okay,
program.
so this is after your MD
Right.
degree, then what, another 2 years, or how long were you?
3 years.
3 years.
Yes.
In what, internal medicine?
Internal medicine.
Okay.
And after that period of time, I actually worked. One of the things I love about internal medicine is you can do quite a few different things. So what I ended up doing was working in critical care for a while because I just loved the application of medicine in a crisis orientation like this, and looking at the extraordinary ability of the human being under trauma to be able to survive and sustain. But while I did that, I also found that, son of a gun, here I am putting in these feeding tubes and lines, etc., and yet I had never been given even 5 minutes of nutrition as a curriculum in medical school, nor did I get anything about physical activity. I just happened to be, physically active and an athlete. So what I ended up doing was doing a very radical change in my career. I went to a meeting at Harvard where I met many people in the field of nutrition, and I was offered on the spot by the guy sitting next to me. Just, they say that luck is just, when you put all of that good preparation and then opportunity hits you. Well, I was offered a Pew Foundation postdoctoral scholarship at the University of California, Davis, which has the biggest doctoral program in nutrition. And there I became a Pew Scholar in nutrition and metabolism. And I really began to appreciate the extraordinary complexity of the biochemistry of nutrition. From there...
What time period was that?
This was, I finished up there in 1991.
Okay.
1991. And then I started falling in love with a real specific research track, which was the relationship between stress and fat. And no one had really quite put together the metabolic syndrome yet. It was being called Syndrome X, but I was fascinated with belly fat and with stress. And I was very fortunate in visiting the National Institutes of Health and being offered a position as a senior research fellow with Dr. George Crusos in developmental endocrinology at the NIH Clinical Center. And
where is that?
In Bethesda, Maryland,
Okay.
at the NIH.
Yep.
And so I left Davis, and I went directly into my laboratory at the NIH. And there we started to crack the code on the relationship between intra-abdominal fat and stress. And what we found was that, indeed, as one has elevated and chronically elevated levels of stress hormone, that it's much easier to pile on fat deep inside the belly, which increases your risk for diabetes, heart disease, cancer. And this ultimately was described as the metabolic syndrome. And so I was very happy. We used patients from around the world who had Cushing's disease, and this is a disease where you have usually a tumor in the pituitary gland, although it could be in the adrenal gland, and it just keeps putting out more and more stress hormone. It's a benign tumor, but it has to be removed because, you know, you end up with problems. And ironically, all of these people who had this ended up having big bellies. They all look like little pumpkins. And thus we began to put this together, and I did this using molecular biology, protein gels, looking at the receptors for glucocorticoids in varying depots of fat. So it really helped put it all together. This also began my career in media, because when I was at the National Institutes of Health, lo and behold, the whole fen-phen controversy showed up, the 2 diet pills that hit mass media.
I remember that now. Yes.
And CNN showed up, and they said, is there someone we could talk to who'd be able to sort of explain the whole thing to the American public at the NIH level? And everybody pointed at me, and so that began quite a bit of work that has continued to this day.
Yeah.
Working with the media, because I really love to teach. You know, the Latin derivation of the word doctor is teacher.
Right.
And so I like multimedia teaching, whether it's radio, television, online, interviews with magazines. I love to just get to take complex science and to distill it. So what that led me to do while I was just finishing up my work at the NIH was to partner with the Discovery Channel, where I then hosted a couple of their big shows. We had one show in 8 seasons, the National Body Challenge, where I started to take so much of this great new science and then applied it to real people and families. At the same time, my series, Could You Survive, did a twist on, you know, Fit to Live, which was the name of one of my books. And that was, are you literally fit mentally and physically to survive in 21st century, you know, world where you may have to pick yourself up off the floor when you're all alone and maybe you've broken an ankle? Can you really help yourself? Do you have the strength mentally and physically? So we started challenging people to think about that.
Yeah.
Now, while I was at the NIH, at the same time, I was appointed the first senior research fellow in the brand new and burgeoning Office of Alternative Medicine. And this was just sheer happenstance. I happened to be sitting next to the first director, and he asked if I would mind just kind of, you know, tag teaming with some of my other work with the traditional science in my laboratory and look at things like movement therapies, like, for instance, Tai Chi and yoga in its application to diseases like cerebral palsy and etc. And so once again, I got a chance to do a twist on fitness.
Right place at the right time, it
You
seems
know,
to me.
It's, I'm telling you, there's one thing that I've been blessed with most of my life, and that is really good timing.
Yes, yeah.
So can you imagine the fun applications I had?
What year was this when you're doing the movement, when you're starting to, you know, you're asked to think about the movement and the...
With the alternative medicine people? That was back in 1991 through 1996.
Okay.
I stayed with that work for about 5 or 6 years there, and then I ended my work with the National Institutes of Health because I had done all of my fellowship work, and that's when I went on faculty with the University of Maryland in the School of Medicine, and there I got a chance to start teaching nutrition, at the same time an appreciation of physical fitness. These medical students had never heard of any of this.
Right.
And yet
this is in Baltimore, isn't it?
This is in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And you know, the big joke about this is when you read a magazine article and it says, well, before you start this nutrition program or this physical activity program, please consult your physician.
Right.
Oh, great, the most clueless person in the room.
They don't know anything about
Well, because
it.
they never got any formal training.
Yeah.
So I became part of a multi-institution study. We used about 20 institutions to do pilots of nutrition teaching
very
and
neat.
physical fitness teaching in medical schools.
Wow.
And needless to say, the students were just wild about this because they
Yeah.
were so hungry.
Yeah.
But you know, to this day, it's still a struggle
It is.
trying to get that out there because it's not seen as important enough, like learning oncology and the rest of it.
Absolutely,
So it's
yeah.
not on the boards.
The disease model still
It's still
rules.
it still rules, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean we don't stop trying
I agree.
anyway. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So there we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, I talk about that in some of my classes because I'm in the medical school, and the undergrads can't believe that nutrition and all, lifestyle issues aren't in the curriculum, or if they are, very briefly.
Well, you know, I just got through being the senior editor for the women's health section in Dr. Jim Rippey's wonderful lifestyle medicine
Absolutely,
textbook.
yeah.
Now, this is like 3,000, pages of the application of multiple disciplines to lifestyle itself. I'm so thrilled with this textbook. Just came out in its second edition, and I had just the honor of working with such a great group of authors that I collected to be able to address a variety of different aspects of lifestyle. Joanne Manson, of course, doing physical activity and lifestyle from her work at Harvard with the nurses study. I authored the chapter on women and body composition over a lifetime, from womb to tomb, looking at the hormonal milestones, looking at women's body composition and what affects it as a woman matures, all the way postmenopausally. And this was basically one of the very first chapters ever written in academia, looking specifically at women, because for a long time it was basically men's body composition that we concentrate on, with a lot of extrapolation to women, which of course is never going to work. And so once again, I thank Dr. Rippey for inviting me to do this work and bring in these great minds. Holly Thacker from the Cleveland Clinic, looking at osteoporosis and bone health. And for the very first time, I invited two of my colleagues to write the very first chapter in this textbook on health coaching as it relates to lifestyle. And now that we have more science about this as well. So we're really moving in all the right directions.
Yeah.
But gosh, it takes a lot of perseverance, because it's difficult out there, especially in the traditional institutions. I don't want to hear this. One of my most wonderful pieces of work now is with Dr. Bob Salas, who founded Exercises Medicine with the American College of Sports Medicine. So I chair the media committee. I'm now also on the overall communications committee, along with my wonderful colleagues who are trying to get the word out on physical activity throughout multimedia. And working with Bob has been wonderful. We're striving on multiple levels to get exercise to be seen as a vital sign on electronic medical records. I'm helping them, since I'm in Washington and I have great connections there, working with our lobbyists to put forth whatever legislation that will help forward our mission to get exercise seen and physical activity seen as critical, right up there with blood pressure and height and weight. It's got to be seen as a vital sign. The discussion has to be on the table every single time you're sitting with a patient. very important. And it's been my honor to work with the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Regina Benjamin, in helping put together the Surgeon General's Walks for a Healthy and Fit Nation, segueing off her vision statement. And I brought her to ACSM a couple of years ago.
I remember that.
Yeah,
in
to
Baltimore,
keynote.
wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And we did one of our big walks there. We
Yeah.
brought in the media, Washington Post. We got great coverage. She also is the honorary chair of the executive committee of ACSM for Exercises Medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to partner up with everyone we can find to be able to get this word out that physical activity in and of itself is so terribly, terribly important.
Yeah. Was the Exercises Medicine link with Bob your first main thing you did with ACSM, or had you been involved earlier on?
Actually, Exercises Medicine is my first main thrust. Mm-hmm. And I think it just segued beautifully with the work that I had been doing with Dr. Benjamin at the time. It just all came together.
Yeah.
It was absolutely perfect. And I couldn't think of a better way to spend my time than to really dedicate that effort to, again, supporting what Bob has done, both here in North America as well as with the global initiative.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
when he asked me to become the spokesperson for the Exercises Medicine campaign, so that when we were called upon by media, then I could tag team whenever Bob needed me to help get the word out.
Yeah. What are you doing now? Are you in private practice, or are you practicing medicine currently, or where are you located and all that?
Right now I'm in Bethesda, Maryland. Okay. I'm on faculty with the University of Maryland, but I wear a number of hats.
Yeah.
I'm the chief lifestyle expert for WebMD's 90 million members, for which I have just a wonderful, wonderful time working with the A-team at WebMD to be able to message out all of this. It gives me a great platform.
Yeah.
I'm also the chief medical correspondent for nutrition and fitness for Discovery Health Television. And again, another marvelous segue for getting the word out. I've written now 5 books. I have 3 New York Times bestsellers. And so what I'm doing is taking all of this messaging and packaging it in a way where I can touch consumers the best that I possibly can. I'm on the board of Prevention Magazine. Rodale Publishing is my publisher. I have a column with Prevention Magazine. I'm working very closely with Meg Moore with the Well Coach program because I really believe that this coaching model is going to be very, very applicable to getting our word out and helping people. And believe it or not, I still see private patients too.
Oh, I
get them in
about
there
that.
somewhere.
Wow.
No question about it.
What a busy day.
Well, ACSM also has a great radio show, and twice a month I go on with Melody Cole and try to, again, translate some of the more current scientific knowledge out there into something everybody can just digest and hopefully use.
Yeah, if you can't disseminate it, why do it? I mean,
Absolutely.
There's this going on here, but we've got to do something with it. So.
No question. And the final thing is, my last book, The Hunger Fix, was about the brand new science of food and addiction. And I'm now going to be partnering with a national organization to be able to tweak and integrate the brand new science that we've now discovered through work by the National Institutes of Drug Abuse and Dr. Nora Volkol, who is their director. And this is the science of food and addiction, and really now looking at the traditional diet programs, tweaking them so that now we're really looking at lifetime recovery from exposure to the hyperpalatables, and that's sugary, fatty, salty of food combinations that science has now found in vulnerable individuals absolutely hijacks their reward system and damages the prefrontal cortex of their brain. And guess what? Physical activity is absolutely a critical, crucial element to detox and lifelong recovery. Wow. So if anything, I get them off that bad stuff and I push physical activity. What could be better?
Yeah, what could be better, yeah. Well, Pam, thank you so much. As I said, time flies really fast.
I know.
You're so busy, I'm impressed how many things you can fit in your life.
Well, you want to know something? It was someone once said that if you love what you're doing, you've never worked a day in your life,
like work,
and that's me.
Yeah.
I've been very, very blessed. This is all such wonderful work.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was nice meeting you.
Jack.
Appreciate it.